Hey, what is up ladies and gentlemen, I'm Sonic the Hedgehog here, and I'm back for some more of yet again for the likes of the Maxi Toys videos. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to more Let's Play of Klonoa, or in this case, Klonoa Daughter Phantom Isle Remake for the Nintendo Wii. So, in fact, it does remind me of something related to something with the forms of that particular Moon Kingdom, is that it does almost feels like inspired by the forms of Twilight Sparkle's Kingdom on that particular castle in My Little Pony Friendship is Magic in the finale portion of the Season 4. So even though it does remind me of that particular place, but except the fact that obviously it's going to take place in the skies, just like the Temple of the Sun, obviously. So anyway, last time we did manage to able to explore through probably the longest levels of the entire game between the two, which there are Vision 5-1 and especially noticeable with Vision 5-2. And also we managed to able to beat the likes out of Joker, and today for this video is the fact that we're about to be continuing on and exploring through Vision 6-1 and eventually 6-2. So even then though, hopefully we'll meet up with the Ghadius, which is of course the main major villain throughout. So even then though, let's get this thing to it with of course Vision 6-1. So let's get this thing to it.
Thank you, Pamela!
You're very welcome. I'm happy to do anything I can to help. Klonoa, Hupo, please be careful and watch out for each other.
We will. Don't worry.
I'll be praying for your safety.
Hey, what's the matter, Hupo?
Huh? Oh, it's nothing. I was just thinking. There has to be something that we can do. We have to stop Ghadius' plans for revenge.
Right. Come on.
So yeah, obviously we're about to get started with Vision 6-1, so even then though, onwards to the Moon Kingdom itself. So even then though, that as to be expected, that as far as where Piglet already mentioned about this and during the likes of in Klonoa Daughter Phantom Isle Let's Play on the PlayStation 1, to be expected, this is actually the final world to able to actually rescue the villagers. Between Vision 6-1 and especially noticeable with 6-2 especially, because, well, after obtaining every single of those villagers, well, basically we are entirely done with that particular collectible sake. So even then though, until whenever we get to Empire of Dreams, and especially noticeable with Klonoa 2 Lunati's Veil, which it might be somewhat a little bit different compared to this, but even then we'll find things out whenever we get to those Let's Plays. The only couple of exceptions with the forms of the Klonoa Let's Play Marathon we're going to be... I wish I can able to do those, but unfortunately though, because they managed to release it outside of Japan and stuff, so even then though, that they're expected there are about 2 games that was missing out, including the forms of the RPG game, which is of course Klonoa Heroes, which is only on the Game Boy Advance, and I was gonna potentially trying to get that, but it's only imported on Japan, so even then, well, at least it might be the only good thing about the forms of other regional Game Boy Advance cartridges, like specifically Japanese, and especially noticeable with the American version especially as well, that how the fact that it is all region free apparently. So even then, because a friend of mine, by the forms of Stuart, from the likes of, you know, Cap King 74, that he still managed to got himself Pokemon Emerald on the Game Boy Advance, and it still managed to play out just fine on the actual, like, the UK's Game Boy Advance SP and all that stuff, which I could assure that could be the same applies with, the Game Boy Advance original as well, so at least even then though, I might actually guessing that right. So even then though, not much else to be said and done, and whoa! Jesus Christ, man, I almost died right there. But anyways though, to be expected as what the actual main difficulty will start to kick things in, well, despite the fact that, well, to me it's not that much difficult compared to the forms of the original though with this particular level segments like this, because obviously with your new health supplies and all that stuff, so it is to be expected to be a lot easier than the originals though. So at least to me that, whoa, Jesus Christ, don't do that again. Oh, jeez Louise. So anyways, the levels gimmick, as you can see right there, is the fact that there are few multitude of colors of those little Ghadius statues, and in order to actually continue proceeding, is the fact that we need to keep on breaking them, and then every time you're able to break the corresponding crystals, then that's how you're able to actually continue on with the actual main level. So, even though it's kind of like the same length for how it does it on, well, to me, the same length as the ones and how it does it on Vision 5-1, and especially noticeable with Vision 5-2, although except the fact that we're gonna have to go through, like, room to room, although it's kind of like the same thing from that particular level than the likes of how it does it on Vision 5, but except the fact that we're not gonna able to collect any of these orbs anymore, and especially noticeable, we don't have to worry about the actual Stylo Eclipse and all that stuff, so, and despite the fact that I did manage to fall off by accident, but that's okay, because I managed to activate that checkpoint from earlier ago, and especially noticeable with how it does help me, because even then my health actually regenerates, so when every time I do manage to die from that part, so anyway though, so today's day is the 28th of June, in this case in 2019, so today, that's Super Mario Maker 2, for those of you who've ever watched our unboxing video recently, and despite the fact that Super Mario Maker 2 just recently came out today for the Nintendo Switch for every single countries anywhere else, like including Japan, America, and especially noticeable in Australia, and heck, even with the forms of our UK country as well. So even then, that's a pretty big deal, because, you know, unlike any forms of different platforms, like specifically Nintendo Wii, Nintendo GameCube, and Nintendo DS, and especially noticeable with the 3DS, well, occasional 3DS moments noticed, but for some of them anyway though, and especially noticeable with certain Game Boy Advance titles, and especially noticeable with any other consoles released for that time, basically they managed to able to came out in a different dates on between each country and all that stuff, but at least for Nintendo Switch, they did manage to release on the exact same day as between each other with all the countries in mind. So even then, that's pretty swell if you ask me, although the only exception is, of course, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle, because Japanese might actually get the game until 2018, which it did already happen, especially noticeable that, obviously the reason why that the, you know, I think we already mentioned about this from the past anyway, that the reason why the Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle was going to be released on 2018 instead of the 2017, because they obviously need to able to deal with some Japanese voice dubs between the actual human characters. Well, the only time exception is, of course, the Mario characters, of course, because they heavily borrowed those voice clips from, you know, the past Mario games, basically. So even then, that makes it entirely obvious for that point. I'm not exactly sure if I've ever looked at the Japanese version of certain songs or what have you, so even then I'm not able to look that up until then. But for now on, though, I just need to concentrate on, you know, Klonoa for the Nintendo Wii. So even then, that makes it totally obvious for that point. So, and aside from that, though, there are quite a few things I just want to briefly mention, although sadly to say, not much else to talk about, because obviously we basically already mentioned a lot of things during the likes of in our, you know, Super Mario Party Let's Play, and especially noticeable with, you know, Super Luigi Galaxy, and especially noticeable with, I would classify for same by the forms of, you know, in Kingdom Hearts Final Mix, and heck, even with the forms of, the other game especially as well, which is, essentially, actually I can't remember now, because, well, I know it's been quite a while since I did manage to able to actually record some of these parts on YouTube. And once again, I must admit though right away, is that I must admit that I do apologize with the lack of uploading schedules by this point, although it is directly going to be uploaded during today on, of course, the 28th of June. So naturally, we're getting quite close towards the end of June already. And what was up with this little flaming egg or whatever? Because normally on the PlayStation version, it's all like purplish, but in this version of the game, it's all like in fiery egg, which even though it does look a bit weird, but hey. So when you manage to able to smash the white crystal, then that's how the level ends itself. So even then though, and I guess we're actually going to be coming across into the final platforming level, well, for now anyway though, because obviously that we might actually still come across into extra vision once you beat the main game. So anyways, let's get into the forms of Vision 6-2, and hopefully we can able to actually beat the likes out of Ghadius once again for our YouTube channel, and especially noticeable with how the fact that we need to rescue the final 6 of the villagers. So let's get this thing to it.
Prince Hupo! Prince Hupo! Prince Hupo, we've been waiting for you. I have terrible news. The kingdom has been taken over by a fiend named Ghadius.
What did you say?
We were careless. They have trapped the songstress Levis in the egg that resides below. And the inside of the egg has been filled with nightmare energy.
Oh, Mother.
Mother?
If the egg should hatch, the consequences would be too terrible to imagine.
I understand. Mother, you and the others should stay back.
Hupo, dear.
Klonoa, there's something I have to tell you. It's just, I'm actually the Prince of Crest, the Moon Kingdom.
What?
I was just disguised as a ring spirit. There was a reason that I had to go to the outside world.
Why?
I'm really sorry, but I can't tell you what that reason was yet. But I promise I'll explain everything later. Right now, I need you to trust me. Will you please help me for just a little bit longer? Just a little bit longer. Please, Klonoa?
Hupo. Of course I will. After all, we're best friends, aren't we?
Thank you, Klonoa. You don't know how much this means to me.
Well, Hupo, it appears you found yourself a good friend.
Oh, absolutely, Mother. Now you should go and take shelter someplace safe with the others.
Hupo, we're counting on you. Do your best.
I will.
See, obviously, about the fact that it shows us for this specific cutscene where obviously Hupo managed to able to tell the truth about the fact that he's actually a human and he disguised himself for that particular worth noting for. Because even then, one thing I found is a little bit iffy about this version than the likes of how it does it on the PlayStation version. In the PlayStation version, Hupo as a human is actually really adorable, especially how small that he is. But however though, in this particular version of Hupo on the human form, it just looks kind of almost plasticky of all things, although it's probably just me, but I'm pretty sure it's made out of like something that's entirely relatable to those little, I would say some of these Japanese action figures or something like that, or it's probably just me. So anyways though, and obviously this is the final level that we can able to rescue all of the villagers, obviously, because once we're done with all that, then until whenever we get to the final vision, and especially noticeable with the extra vision as well, then we are entirely done with obtaining every single of those villagers. So you probably get the idea to see how this will go. So anyways though, as I said before about the fact that the reason why it just actually took me so long to able to actually do these editing software as far as I'm aware, because obviously once again that my microphone, the actual current microphone that we are still using even to this day, still have a lot of issues again, which even then, I swear I did not even jinx it, or even especially noticeable. While I did sometimes jinx it by just simply just slamming it on the floor and trying to able to actually make it work again, but it certainly did recently. But most of the time though, whenever I was trying to do another set of recording sessions and all that stuff, like specifically until when it gets to the point until next month that we're about to be planning to do the Super Mario Galaxy 2 redo Let's Play, and especially noticeable with the continuation parts of Super Mario Party, where me and Pinkie Pie are still currently doing at the time. Holy macaroni, it just gets worse and worse with my microphone's disconnection issues, because even then, I just found out very, very, very despicably, what you believe, because even then, it just gets the feeling about the fact that, well, most of the time my voice doesn't even recognize, and especially noticeable, it just goes like significantly quieter as to be expected or two, and it's just, it just feels like a little bit of a waste of opportunities for my... I just have some really bad luck with all these little technical props when it comes to like other accessories and all that stuff, even though despite the fact that I was originally going to be able to use the microphone built into the actual laptop, which fundamentally though we haven't used that microphone since I think ever since during the likes of in November 2017, where you know, basically Duffy was still on to Sonic the Hedgehog 2006 and all that stuff, but obviously that held the fact that, well, that was the last time we actually did manage to use that built-in microphone for that particular laptop itself. Whilst compared to the forms of the towards the very end of 2017 and onwards, then obviously we are currently using the actual standard microphone, which it works most of the time, but as I said before, it does have a lot of issues most of the time for my part, because even then though I swear I did not even like jinx it, as I said this countless amount of times, and it's just And speaking of I seem to get some little bit of mistakes there, because obviously that enemy just keeps on, well, it's not so much for the enemy, but it's more likely the obstacle that it does attempt to able to get in my way. So even though that can get a little bit nauseating at points. So because of this though, yeah. So I suppose another thing I should probably mention about this potentially is the fact that recently, when it comes to like the actual some other films of Pixar's career, even though that one thing before I mention about more details about Pixar stuff is the fact that, you know, I've said this before since the forms of how it does it on the quite a few parts ago in this particular Let's Play, that, as you know, I recently saw Toy Story 4, which is really awesome. And obviously I'm not going to spoil the ending, because otherwise that most people seem to really think that well, they don't want to spoil for themselves, so even though they can just see it for themselves. So that makes it totally obvious, but somehow every now and then they're just now spreading those little spoilers when it comes to like not only the actual film clips, but it's also the actual like the storybook stuff as well. So even though to be expected at this point, like it kind of like it does the same thing for how it does it in The Incredibles 2 in during the last year. And there's one thing to point things out, is the fact that since I've actually saw Toy Story 4, this might be potentially be the only Pixar film to able to not to feature the Pixar short this time around though, because, well, it kind of does the same thing for how it does it on, I would say Coco is another example, but even then though, and that could be same applies for the theatrical version of Toy Story 1 back in 1995. So, well, at least if you manage to purchase Toy Story at home, then you can able to actually get your experience of Tim Toys, even though which, fundamentally though, although I'm not going to explain about the spoiler territory, because obviously I'll let you guys see it for yourself, rather than just actually telling you guys about the actual ending or the villain might actually be. So even then I just want to classify that. So, because even though compared to Maxi 10, which is essentially a little bit of a crappy channel nowadays, I'm very surprised about this potentially, because even though that channel has been long dead since like I would say by the forms of in almost 11 years now. So even though, because you know his channel has been up since you know, in 2008, but since we are now in 2019, so even then that he's no longer going to be continuing for this point. So you probably get the idea of how bad his videos are. So even then, whilst compared to our videos themselves, it's actually doing pretty good, even despite that with the forms of well, I must admit though right away, with all this cringy dialogue in here and there, and especially noticeable with how the fact that with the sound balancing issues from the past few years, like specifically there was this one particular redo Let's Play we really love to able to do again for a third time, which is Rio for the Xbox 360/PlayStation 3. But I will admit though right away is the fact that, well, the quality itself is really impressive and very good. However though, the commentary itself, even with the sound balancing, it's just that, well, the sound mixing on the other hand though is really damn, you know. Oh nope, and that's why I get for able to do all that stuff. So, anyway though, so yeah, I could potentially, it's like, good lord, what's wrong with me today? Okay, let's try this again. Yeah, because potentially speaking with the actual, like, the sound mixing on that particular Let's Play is pretty damn bad. And that could be also same applies for Mario Party 2 as well, which I still really need to consist of thinking of, like, redoing any kind of Mario Party game. Well, the only couple of exceptions, which there are obviously Super Mario Party, because we're still on the progression on that Let's Play, and especially noticeable with Mario Party 9, which I think that Let's Play turned out to be quite good, actually. And especially noticeable with Mario Party Island Tour, even though despite some of these missing content we haven't seen for this point, ever since during the likes event 5 years ago at this point now. And especially noticeable with Mario Party 10, despite the fact that the views count is actually not as high as the forms of how it does it on Mario Party 9 videos. Well, the only time it actually is ridiculously high is, of course, Step It Up video from Mario Party 9. So, you probably get the idea, and that could be same applies for Mario Party Advance, because I will never go touch that game ever again. Well, unless if I manage to able to play this on my own time on the Game Boy Advance cartridge, because obviously I'm more used to with the forms of, like, completing any other Mario Party games, like specifically 100%ing it. So even then, well, at least I've already mentioned about this, and I believe Pinkie Pie also mentioned about that too, in the likes of in Super Mario Party Let's Play with the River Survival mode. We really want to able to actually complete the hard courses in all of the actual goals on that mode. During time though, at least. Well, the only time it makes it super difficult is, of course, the actual emphasis on bypassing a lot of those tiny balloons most of the time, which is pretty easy to do, because even then though, because unlike the standard normal courses, which I found is very simple to obtain, but specifically in the hard course though, holy macaroni, it just gets really tough. So I digress. So yeah, let's just get into the forms of the discussion about the forms of the Pixar stuff. So even then though, not only does the Onward film is about to be during the next year, which is specifically in 2020, they also did manage to announce there's going to be the second Pixar film, which is going to come out on the exact same year as Onward, but it usually calls it Soul, which I have no idea why that Pixar managed to able to actually just do this move, like specifically just trying to release those two films at the same year, which that could be same applies to how it does it in between, you know, between 2015 and 2017, because in 2015 we have Inside Out, and especially noticeable with The Good Dinosaur, which is sadly in the Good Dinosaur film was actually like the box office in that film is really miserable, because well, I can expect that most people seem to prefer Inside Out a lot more just because of how unique it is, and especially noticeable with how the fact that, well, it just doesn't get my attention with The Good Dinosaur. Don't get me wrong, it's not that terrible or anything, it's just that it's not my kind of thing, because even then though, well, it just feels kind of like sort of a similar style for how it does it in, correct me if I'm wrong, by the forms of in Monsters Inc., because obviously in Monsters Inc., then obviously Michael Salsky, and especially noticeable with James P. Sullivan, then obviously those two need to look after Boo in case she needs to get back into the actual her own room, which I think to me that concept is really cool. And although to be fair, during in 2001 Shrek did manage to beat that film for Oscar-winning awards and all that stuff, so, but I digress. So, since we actually approach towards the end of the level, then I could assure to you, we are now face off against with Ghadius himself.
So, The Nightmare Crystal, Nahatum, will soon be ready. But what is it about this one dream? This strange dream that won't be consumed by nightmares. It must be eliminated. I have to find it and destroy it. The creation of Nahatum must be perfect. So they've come. Foolish travelers of dreams. I must say I'm surprised. I never would have thought that you'd make it all the way here.
That's enough, Ghadius!
Well, I'm afraid you're just a little too late.
Why are you doing this?
Why? I've run out of patience with this pathetic world that rejects nightmares and relies only on happy dreams. I should think that would be more than reason enough.
How can you be so selfish? If Nahatum is brought back, you'll be destroyed along with everything else.
I don't care. The world has already rejected me. Now it is simply my turn to reject the world.
There's no way that we're gonna let you do this.
As you wish. I will show you the error of your ways.
So here we go, fighting against with the forms of Ghadius, obviously, and it plays exactly like how it did on the original PlayStation version, except the fact that, obviously, this is on a Nintendo Wii remake, so although the entire battle plays out exactly the same though. Basically, every time you see the enemies, when Ghadius managed to able to actually spread them apart, then it's up to you to able to actually just do, you know, do the usual stuff like using the enemies as projectiles and throw it towards the actual body, which is of course his weakness, and be very careful of those yellow spots because otherwise that, just like the PlayStation version, it takes you into those little mini sequences and stuff like that. And that could be also same applies for Sonic Mania as well, that every time you're actually able to actually come across into some events like this, then obviously you have to cope with this kinds of stuff. And then every once in a while, as you expected, that there's going to be 3 phases. Like in first phase, basically he just summons not only the actual normal, you know, dangerous projectile, but also the enemies do manage to come out from the actual shower or something like that. I'm not exactly sure how do I explain this, potentially. And obviously the second phase, he is actually summoned those enemies jointed by those little red stuff. I'm not exactly sure how these were called. But even then though, I'm thinking that we actually cut to the chase onto the third and final phase already. Because obviously we've already just managed to able to almost drain down his health completely. Which even then, I found this boss fight to be slightly easier than the forms of how it does it on the PlayStation version most of the time. Although, don't get me wrong, I have no issues with that. But it's just that sometimes my jumps just have some little bit of an error code. So, anyways though, so let's go ahead and deal with the final hit for Ghadius. So even then, obviously the third and final phase is that he summons this little triangular shaped barrier. And obviously, once you take down either those little corners, then you are able to actually free those enemies out. And, you know, you'll finish him off in no time. So, there goes Ghadius. So, be dead, son. You're dead.
Klonoa! Pupil!
You all came!
Blast it! I wanted to be the one to get rid of that guy. Wonderful. I just knew you two would be able to do it.
With this peace return.
Very good. Very good indeed.
You did it!
Klonoa, Hugo. I'm glad you're both unharmed.
Mother, we did it! We defeated him! I guess this means it's finally over, isn't it?
I wouldn't be so sure. I already have more than enough nightmare energy. The body of the songstress Nefis will be taken over, and Nahatum will at last be brought to life. All the world's dreams pass through a prism and become the building blocks that give form to the world of Phantomile. So long as the power of dreaming exists, no one will ever be able to stop Nahatum.
We're not gonna let you get away with this, Ghadius. We still have the power to stop you.
A strange dream. Well, that dream can and will be eliminated by Nahatum. Hear me, strange dream. This world is coming to an end. And the perfect nightmare is about to begin!
It can't be.
Nahatum has been brought back to life!
Ghadius. I never thought he'd go so far as to give it his own nightmares.
Don't give up hope. There's still a chance.
A chance?
A power passed down by our ancestors to be used if something like this should ever happen. Now we must combine the power of our 5 kingdoms. Can I count on all of you here to lend a hand?
Absolutely. Right, everybody?
Thank you, everyone. Let's hurry to the top of the tower.
Pamela, take us to the top.
Yes, sire.
Come on, we have to go help too, Hugo.
Klonoa, listen. You have to know this. Nahatum is mainly going to be targeting you up there.
Huh?
The strange dream that Ghadius was talking about. He was talking about you, Klonoa.
What? What do you mean?
I don't have time to explain it all to you right now. We have to get to the top. Corral, please take us up. Just leave it to me.
So of course, much like the original version of the game, is that the journey itself is entirely not over yet, because there was actually one last villain to deal with, and that is of course Nahatum, which of course he's got hatched out of the egg. So even then though, in this case it's going to take place in somewhat of a Rainbow Road kind of arena, so even then though, that's as far as we can able to actually think about this at this point. So, and even then though, as to be expected, we actually got ourselves, as I said this before, that we've actually gathered every single of those villagers, and once again there are 72 in total, so because of the, you know, the actual tally part right there. So, and even then though, that's as far as I can say about it. So join me next time on Let's Play Klonoa for the Nintendo Wii, in this case a remake of Klonoa Daughter Phantomile, is the fact that we are about to be taking on the final version of the game, which we're about to be taking on Nahatum himself. So, this should be pretty interesting, so see you guys next time for that. Later, fellas.